What's going on, family? What's happening? What's happening? All right, here we are. Here we are. Here we are. I have taken, you would say, some days off, but no, I didn't. I didn't. Last week I couldn't do the show because I was just flying back from Angola. So yeah, I couldn't. I couldn't do the show. Yeah, I arrived on the same day. I was exhausted on Monday. Actually, Monday late afternoon we landed. Welcome to Monday Quality Talks, family. This is your Monday rendezvous. I hope that you have had a great start of your week. And should it not necessarily be great, remember that you still have the whole week to see things unfolding in a much more positive way. So don't be phased by whatever is coming your way. It's just the start, and it's always ideal when you can have an actual positive start of the week, but sometimes it just doesn't always work out the way we had projected. Make sure you make yourself comfortable. You press the like button, of course. Show some love. Like button. Share the live if you wish. Support via the super chat and super stickers. You can do that, of course. Show some love. Uh, Jump into the comments. This is an interaction. It's not just me talking, but we can definitely interact, and we should interact, as a matter of fact. As today, the topic is well, pretty much I would say open format, but I really wanted to talk a little bit on a subject that is very dear to me, and I've took some notes. Did a bit of a resume of well, a gathering of thoughts uh, about the Nation Nègre et Culture of Cheikh Anta Diop. And as I'm looking for it, let me type it here. And yeah, basically, I've done uh, quite some research. Took some time listening to quite a few important thinkers, Pan Africanists, um, uh, and really try to study a little bit about. I mean, quite extensively, but try to just enhance my knowledge and expand my perception on things, especially when it relates to the continent and the ancient histories. And uh, many may say that it's not that important, but you see that the thing is that you cannot really know your future if you don't know your past, right? And basically, you have got to sort of like you got to be able to really, really, really dig deep, dig deep, and understand that the knowledge is not going to be easily accessible if you don't start looking for it. You have got to be able to look for it. You've got to be able to um, have the desire to know, have the desire to question the status quo on what is Africa and what is the heritage as that we have, as Africans of the country, of the continent, of the diaspora, and of various cultural and blood mixture. Welcome, Master Electronic. Greetings, greetings indeed. Giovanni Kopogo. Bikesenge, Bikesenge Tananye, Mokesenge Ngametimbi. Vraiment, merci beaucoup. Merci, merci, merci. Soyez les bienvenus. Be very, very welcome. And so here we are, man. All right. So just for you to understand, because I've noticed that Cheikh Anta Diop, who is a Senegalese historian and anthropologist, is very, very rarely spoken of, if at all spoken of, by any scholars, European scholars per se. As a matter of fact, it's almost like he has been rebuked and revoked to the meanders of or basically the 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 the, the deepest and darkest depths of history, almost like a dangerous name to be dropping, and you get dismissed every time you bring about Cheikh Anta Diop and one of his students and disciples, of course, Mr. Teofilo Benga, who is still alive today, as well as the many, 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 many students of and followers and scholars who have picked up after his passing, the likes of the now late Nusire Kalala Motunde, or Kuvi Gomez, Sesh Kuvi. So yeah, I mean, quite a lot of thinkers and scholars who are pushing the message. And more often than not, I think that the question on the origins of the African continent, the origins of the the African origins of the world, brings about a lot of uneasiness amongst a lot of people. People want to say that, well, if Africa was indeed really the cradle of humanity, which it is, how come it is in such limbo? How come African and Black people and African nations are, so late in terms of development, etc., 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 etc. And a lot of the time, we fail to understand that what it is that when you look back at the history of the African continent, I don't have necessarily dates in mind. I'm not necessarily great at that. I should have, and I will be doing more lives and talk more about these topics, of course, as time goes, as I'm going to be taking more notes. But for what I could gather, it's like if you for time immemorials, you can go as far back as you want, and you realize that very early on, Africa was attacked systematically. When the Roman Empire fell apart, trying to Christianize, the African continent, and Africans embraced Islam, for example, as a way to sort of like kick off, the Roman Catholic Church off their back. They made way for Islam to enter the continent, and eventually, open routes for one of the first slavery that people rarely speak of, or most of the time forget about. But the first enslavers were the Muslims. And when you say that, it makes people very uncomfortable, but it is what it is. Things have been done, things have happened, they are a thing of the past, yes, but they cannot necessarily be forgotten. And it is important to speak about these matters because it allows people to be more educated about their heritage, and maybe even be strengthened in their capacity to move day by day, knowing that they're not just anyone, they're not just anything. Erica, those who say history isn't important fail to know the totality of who we are and can be. Roots are an essential component of plants. We should not disregard our history at all. I agree. Totally indeed. Prester John, welcome on the grind, dropping by the country. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate the ground. Appreciate you even taking the moment. Have a blessed week ahead, brother. Erica, brother Boddhi, thank you for bringing light to these topics of the past to consider as we talk into the future. Yes, indeed. It's the thing is that I spend so much time educating myself and gathering this knowledge. I am in no way, shape, or form pretending to be a scholar on the topic. I am educated on the topic, but not to the point where I feel fully comfortable to to really go against anyone who would be scholarly, deeply educated on it. But I will be indeed on with time. Queen Teresa Russo, what's going on? Happy Valentine's indeed. Thank you, Queen. Thank you to all the queens and kings. Welcome indeed. Well, happy Valentine's Day. We love to say it's a commercial thing, but we actually love to celebrate it. Even though I'm on my own, so I'm going to be celebrating myself. Oh Lord! Well, actually, um, it can be a rather pressuring celebration. Quite honestly, I mean, anybody who doesn't have a partner must feel like shit right now. Honestly. Um, Emery Agnon, comment ça va? What do you do? What do you do? Preston John is saying here something quick. All right, quick message for Boddhi. I read that Eric Prince Blackwater consulted with the Wagner Group on Russian intervention in Libya and Mozambique. We're about mercenaries on the continent. Okay, well, interesting approach on this. I mean, if you think about it, this has been the recourse for a lot of African countries trying to free themselves from certain forces and embracing others. When actually, I think it's an indulgent approach. It's really an internal thing that we should be doing, which is re-strengthening and replenishing our strength, our tactical skills, our military capacities, our sovereignty in general. But you see that the thing is that this is very idealistical, and I believe that Africa as a continent, I don't know if it's through, if it will be us or our children who will be able to experience a sovereign African continent, but I don't think. Many might say that, yeah, there's sovereign African countries. I mean, yes, officially there is, but unofficially, I don't think there's any sense of sovereignty, because if you don't produce, the weapons, you don't produce the resources that allow you to create an industry. You're failing to invest in the industry. You have the resources, but you're not producing wealth, and you're not producing industrial capacities capable to allow your country to free itself from its dependence from, external forces, Occidental forces, Western forces. It's, yeah, you're gonna have situations where people who have the capacities to exploit you, saying that they share with you the same sort of like interest, and they want to base an equal sort of like equalitarian sort of relationship. Well, in all actuality, yes, on paper it is, but in fact, is it really? I don't, and I'm not blaming the leaders. I'm really not blaming necessarily the leaders, all the leaders. I think that a lot of leaders are trying to do their best. Could they do better? Yes. Can it be changed? I think nobody likes to have a master, but you're always going to be having to deal with some sort of master, or somebody bigger, somebody stronger, somebody more rich than you, etc., etc., etc. So I think the report of force here is very imbalanced. We are the wealthiest continent on Earth, by all possible and considered metrics as far as resources are concerned. We are one of the youngest continent, and continue and will be one of the most populated continent in the world. Eventually repopulating the world. But at the same time, there is a sense that there is a recolonization, a neo-colonization happening, and there is a shift of strengths. There's a shift of dominion going on with different countries and different forces. Now you have Russia coming in full strength, as you just said here, and Eric Prince from Blackwater. Potentially, it's looking well from what you're just saying here, and what you were able to gather. Teaming up with the Wagner Group. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. it is what it is, because clearly a lot of these, so-called UN forces have not done anything really efficient to help change and alleviate the pressure and sort of like bring back a sense of stability and peace in the country they were present in. And so I think that you can clearly see that with the DRC um, through the years. And is it a problem that can and will be resolved? Honestly, I don't know. I'm understanding the way politics work. And how because energy controls everything, right? So if you have access to the resources that provide the energy that you need and that provide the elements that you need to be running your economy, you won't necessarily let anyone come and eat off of that plate, right? So for the media, for the people, you'll display a certain sense of transparency and bringing all these big talks and bring all these big forums. But this is a lot of powder in the eyes. I mean, I'm sorry I sound very cynical, but unfortunately, yeah, there's no such thing as a free meal. All right, all right, all right. Queen Teresa Russo saying here, not a problem, King. There are a lot of single ladies out there. Yes, indeed, there are. Yes, indeed. On the lighter approach to the conversation, echoing the Valentine's Day to be celebrated tomorrow or tonight. I mean, depending when you want to celebrate. But yeah, you know what? I am well aware of the amount of single women out there, and you know, yeah. Hey, to be honest with you, I'm not really bothered. I don't think that in my case, it's not a question of having access or being able to, but I just think I'm really focused on building something that requires a lot of my attention and time, and you know but I'm not closed-minded. If something appears and establish itself as being so obvious that I need to be giving it time and attention, I definitely will. I mean, this is definitely on my end not a lack of openness. It's just centering of my attention and focus and energy towards a specific point. All right, Erica, we love you, brother Boddhi. You are enough to love on yourself for Valentine. Pay no mind to the external expectations. Much love to you. Thank you. Absolutely. You said it beautifully. Thank you for that. Preston John. All right. Eric Prince is also providing mercenary services for Chinese mining companies in DRC, cobalt slavery. Absolutely. Absolutely. Financial colonization. That's about right. That's about right. Erica, if smaller nations like Cuba and Haiti could stand against these Western forces, why can't Africa, with the wealth it has? The thing is that it is not as simple as it sounds, right? Because you would, again, and it's normal to assume that because of the wealth we have and because of the natural resources we have, you might think that we can rebel ourselves and sort of like create a shift in the paradigm that we've been dealing with for all these years. And I think to a certain extent it is happening. But quite sincerely, I'm afraid that the world being so globalized now, it is becoming more and more complicated to bring about the kind of disruptive attitude from these leaders that we have now, and that we are to have in the future. And so I understand exactly your point, and I feel that way sometimes. I'm like, we think we have what it takes to be able to change things, and you can see that to a certain extent it's true. But then one of the biggest issue that we have within the African continent is the lack of unity. There's no such thing as African unity. There's no such thing as African unity. It does not exist, at least not in depth. There are unfortunately so many different levels, and everybody is trying to like control the other and be the leader of this region, that region, and then position themselves so that they can be the middle person, or or controlling sort of like the middle ground, and having a vision on how things are shifting around them, and so being the bridge between foreign forces and their regional neighbors, and so on and so forth. So I think that as Emery Agnon is saying here, um, there are well sealed colonial treaties that you can't break right away, even if you want to be free. Exactement, exactement. You see that with Cameroon, with so many countries. There are indeed very, very, very tight deals. And the thing is that if you were to, break them off and try to breach contract, should I say, I think that the likeliness of a total disaster would have to be considered. I mean, one way, shape, or form, some of these fuckers out there would be like, you know what, we'll bond you motherfuckers. We don't need you. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, maybe, but if you see the value of how of that is given to our lives, to the lives of our people on the continent, when there is um, any sort of natural disaster, or if you look at, you don't have to look far. DRC, the eastern part of Congo, what is going on is been going on for so many years. Millions and millions and millions of people have been killed, and yet it shakes no one. You see, still to this day, hundreds of thousands of kids working in mines because there's no other ways to make a living, and being enslaved, and there's so many. And the thing is that there's so many layers socially, socioeconomically connected. It's very, 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 very complicated to bring about the kind of change and the kind of evolution that we who live abroad and who are of the diaspora would love to see our continent um, be about and bring about. That is why a lot of the time, when, for example, you return back, for those who decide to return back to the continent and live on the continent and establish themselves, there's such a massive shift and distance between their perception and the way things are being perceived on the continent by our fellow sisters and brothers. So much so that it creates almost a disdain from one part towards the other, and vice versa. Um, and 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 I think both have to have empathy for one another, because one has been away and deracinated and derooted, either by choice or by force or whatnot, and the other has had no choice but to stay, on ground and survive and make things happen. And I think that there's got a way to come together and sort of like try to meet each other on a level playing field that's set in a way that doesn't allow anyone to think that they're superior than the other, completing one another's knowledge, completing one another's skill set, and trying to empower one another. And it's like, well, and it is very much the kind of things that could be achieved, but in reality, they're more complicated to do than anything, because our mentality is so deeply ingrained, so profoundly ingrained, that you end up um, having to fight against something that is almost DNA like. People have grown to be that way. They've grown to, for example, if you look at my country, Central African Republic, there's no sense of tomorrow. There's no concept of let's think about tomorrow. Today is here. It's now. That's what counts. So what I can have, if I can have it today and I'll have it today, then I'll have it today, and that's it. So that's sense of urgency. The sense of lack cannot facilitate contemplation of the future and projection of oneself in the future being something that can be bright or potentially positive on the long run. And yet we are one of the most faithful continent in the entire world. There's no bigger uh, uh, there's no bigger preachers and people of faith than on the African continent. Unfortunately, we know that it's all farces. These are unfortunately ways, and I'm not disrespecting anyone's belief. You you see, the problem that I have is that all of these belief system religions have set things up in a way that it's like we must believe that for us to be poor here is okay because we will be rich when we die in paradise, forgetting that the paradise is here. I mean, we are living here. We must either we make this life hell or heaven is of our own choice. That doesn't mean that being rich will make your life heaven, because I know quite a few rich people who are freaking miserable. However, I am planning to do my best to live this life I live the fullest, and giving myself the capacities and the tools and the means to enjoy, at least, because it cannot just be about suffering. So there's a normalization of suffering, and there's a normalization of us, of African people, having to suffer, right? It's like it's okay. And and again, this traces back to the lack of knowledge of self and the knowledge of history, because we are not taught about the origins of humanity. And yeah, I know a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm amazing at this, at history and geography, this and that and the other. Yeah, okay, but you're amazing at knowing and repeating a knowledge that has been organized systemically and systematically in a way that always portrays any other race than the white race, or anyone of the white race, as being superior than the other. And unfortunately, you see that a lot of the time. You continue to see that, even though it may not. Okay, they're trying to change a little bit of the curriculum, etc., etc. But unfortunately, it's always the perspective of, well, the white. If a white person comes and say, well, this is for example, I opened the show talking about Sheikh Anta Diop. And before I continue, let me pull up some of the comments here by Prester John. For example, DRC leadership bypassed local Congolese mining corporations in favor of Chinese companies. 80% of Congo's cobalt goes to China. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Them, and I believe Zambia also signed off quite a lot of their natural mining resources to the US when they did this USA Africa summit. It was, I think, last month or last year. I can't remember. But yeah, so, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Erica, again, other countries have broken such treaties like Argentina, and though the consequences are inevitable, if the shift doesn't happen, there will never be change. I agree with you. But you see, I don't know much about Argentina, so I'm not going to make any an educated comment about the structural and the system of Argentina's government and political system. But I would assume that Argentina is mostly dominated by white people. So whether you are Latinos, etc., but there's still a sense of colorism going on, where people who are of a lighter skin, who are white, will still be it for them to break the treaty. Okay, they'll endure a couple of like messed up things. There's gonna be a couple of embargoes here and there, or couple of scandals, Panama Papers, whatever, whatever, whatever. But the truth is that it's part of the same crew. Does it mean that people suffer less? No. But mm, I I highly doubt that if a country like DRC, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, was to breach any agreement dating back to the colonial times or to recent days, you would see this country be brought to complete um, annihilation, and they would find ways to make it happen. I mean, you were talking about a land that is so vast you can put um, half or the entire of Europe. I can't remember the because people underestimate the size of Africa. Africa is a massive continent. It is much bigger than it is portrayed on the map, on the mapa mundo. That's the thing that people don't understand. You can literally put, I don't know if I can't remember if it was Europe or half of Europe, entire, it can enter inside the Democratic Republic of Congo. This land is so rich that if they try to just breach or do anything that is against the interest of the Americans per se, well, they can try. But this is when you're going to realize that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were just a test. I obviously I speak, well, kids say I speak out of my ass and I don't know nothing. And that's not to say that what happened in Japan during World War II was nothing. It was horrible. As a matter of fact, this echoes to my point. There's no more belligerent countries and aggressive countries than the U.S. Because they want to Luna, because they want to preserve peace at, and impose peace according to their standards. And the moment you don't fall in line, they start messing you up, and that's the issue. So, and that's not just the U.S. Now, of course, you see France being expelled out of Mali, but as you can clearly see, Mali is opening their doors to Russia, and it's almost like Russia is giving them a little bit of how we call it in French, a blanc-seing. It's like the member. Well, we got the Russian member card, so you can't really fuck with this. But the thing is that you're trading one master for another. And yes, okay, cool. I agree that you had to do what you had to do in order for things to change. But then the problem is that, is it really going to be a partnership? Is it really going to be a win-win situation between you and the Russians? Because you know, this is questionable. It really is questionable. And in the late 80s, there was a forum that took place in the US. Oh, look, let me see if I can find this in my stuff here. Oh, Lord have mercy. Excuse me. Give me a second while I'm looking for this. Welcome everyone. As I'm looking at this, Papa Kesha, Master Electronic Nakaza. That's right, Pastor John again. Welcome everyone. Vraiment, la milliardaire. Merci beaucoup. Bravo pour les efforts faits. C'est ça. C'est comme ça qu'on apprend les langues étrangères. Master Electronic, we need to remember about whom drawn our maps, constitutions, and way of living. Indeed, sir. Indeed. All right, Erica, there will always be risks involved, but self-determination must always be part of the foundation we operate on. I agree. But self-determination has and can only take place if you have an identity and a sense of identity. And you can identify, how can you identify if your culture is being overlooked and downplayed, and there's so many things. that are really causing for us to lack all of the pride that we need to be having in order to start even thinking about changing paradigm. The religious ideals you bring up are so important to talk about. Your teaching on very important. Well, I'm not teaching my sister. I'm trying to just share some of my personal views. But I mean, if it enlightens you, I invite you to definitely go and do your own research and expand your knowledge. It's all of us. We have the duty of doing that. Um, exactly, it's definitely a huge factor indeed. The size of the continent is a huge factor. Um, Master Electronic, you're right. We are people without source codes. Indeed, 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 indeed. Uh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Papa Keisha, as long as you don't build your weapons and real army, you will be somebody's little. Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. We don't have an industry. We don't have. Uh, we don't have. Yeah, we don't have industry. We don't have industry. Can you believe that a country like Central African Republic? Let me go back to that forum I was talking about. Can you believe that Central African Republic doesn't produce matches? Matches to light candles or anything. We don't produce that. We used to have a sugar company, um, Sojeska. We used to have the like we used to have so many things, and it's like, and all of this has gone to limbo, complete and absolute utter limbo. So you've got to this really begs the question. It's like, not only do we mess each other up willfully, but we indulge in it. So this forum, there was many forums that back in the late 80s, you had Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan, Dr. George Simmons, Professor John Henry Clark. Those are some of the most remarkable um, uh, uh, scholars on the topic of African anthropology, African cosmogenesis, Egyptology, etc., etc., etc. You have to really start looking deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you listen to them back in the days, we're talking about late 80s, 85, 87, etc. You see, oh, Tole Kabaneko, comprenez l'émotion. Papa Kesha, le sponsor des sponsors, toujours à l'appel, toujours à l'appel. Aïe, 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 Tokos. You, you, you will see that um, back in the days, in the late 80s, these scholars were already warning the African nations of the risks to become recolonized. And this will be uh, something that would happen through the mask or the presentation of a more and a fairer way of dealing with the colonizers, the Chinese, the French, the Americans, the Russians, etc., 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 etc. And of course, the colonization is not what it used to be. They're not keeping people in shackles and well, and even that. When you see some of the videos of how some Chinese are handling our sisters and brothers back home on some of the mines that they're exploiting, yeah, I mean, people are still being treated as animals. And the truth is that I firmly believe that had I not received, or had we not received the education we have, we all have received different forms of educations, but at least we know how to read, count, etc. So we have a sense of self that is based on acknowledgement of culture. We have had access to certain resources that facilitated the development of our intellectual intelligence, so much so that, and in such a way that we are capable of discerning the between the fact that we are not to be victim of the oppressor, but we should also not become the oppressor, and at the same time that we are not also a victim of a situation we found ourselves in, or we may have been birthed into, or yet again, we are capable of surpassing our condition. That's the thing. A lot of our fellow African sisters and brothers back on the continent, in different areas of the continent, of course, we're talking about 54 countries here, and there's different layers again. We spoke before, I spoke before, I remember I had Keisha on the show, we talked about castes. We have a casting system in Africa, whether we like it or not, it is there. Tribalism is an absolute uh, abomination, I would say, because it's problematic to the point to the point where it's leading people to forget that there's good in each of us. Like, just because, like, for example, in my country, Central African Republic, for a long time, people said that the Yakoma people were thinking of themselves as better than the rest. But maybe some, yeah, sure. But just like you have people in my tribe, in the Baya people, who think that they are better than the rest, you're always going to have an elite or a wannabe elite, etc., who thinks that they are more educated, who might even be more educated. But the fact of the matter is that this um, is something that is tracing back to immemorial times, where there's always going to be people who prefer to maintain a certain portion of those they command and those they lead or they dominate, maintain them in a healthy level of darkness, right? And the problem is that when you have uneducated or hardly educated people who start being enlightened about their condition, then you have this thing where it becomes a senseless revolution, and people, obviously, and us, we have no problem. Like, as much as we are very peaceful, we can flip from 0 to 100 real quick and resort to machetes and slaughtering each other like there's no tomorrow. Whether we accept it or not, by saying that, somebody said, "Oh, are you treating us as savage?" I'm not saying, I didn't say that we are savages, but we can resort very easily to the type of violences that may make us look as if we were even beyond savages, inhumane. You see, I'm going to read some more of your comments here. Sister Erica here, Brother Boddhi, don't apologize for not being an expert. You've created a space to talk about much needed, important topics in Africa. Bless you, brother. Thank you very much. Papa Kesha, we are Wakanda without the Black Panther, but we share Disney's version. Indeed. And if you think about it, even the Black Panthers that we have, we kill them because we don't have one Black Panther. We have so many women and men who have given and sacrificed their lives to not even sometimes do anything more as crazy, for actually giving their life for things as crazy as just educating people or just giving access to knowledge that would empower a certain portion of the population that they happen to be in touch with, right? Sister Erica here. So, is building a military force part of the solution? War is business. Do we want Africa to engage this way globally? Of course. You have to have a sense of, you have to understand sovereignty cannot be gained through just wishful thinking and we love you and some kumbaya shit. It's all about industrial military complex. I'm not saying it's good, but it's the fact, the world we live in. And as a matter of fact, if you look back in the days, Roman Empire, all of these antiquities, all these times were paved by revolutions, wars, conflicts that often resulted in one being the winner over the other and conquering and controlling and becoming a force that eventually, because you dominate, because you are there, you've established your your power and exert it in a way that is so visible and clear that nobody dares to challenge you. And anyone who does try to challenge you will be dealing with the consequences of your disobedience. That's exactly how the Americans treat people nowadays. That's why they're the strongest, so-called the strongest, or the most powerful country in the world, because of the military and because of the fact that they do have indeed one of the tactically and strategically strongest army in the world. Say what you want, but it is true. This is the one of the countries that can send, several platoons and weaponry at the same time in different places in multiple destinations. So I'm not saying that Africa should be prone to war, but the thing is that if we want to free ourselves the way you say we should, the way Argentina did and IT should, etc., because IT is still dealing with it. You know, uh, there's a very interesting fate that connects Africa and IT. It's very, very interesting, and they will never allow it. They will never allow this industrialization, this militarization of our systems. Um, it's not going to happen. You know, industry, industry. If you don't have it, you don't have a yeah, you have nothing. You know, that's the thing. I'll give you a very simple example. I used to be a diamond cutter. The only places in Africa where you can actually cut diamonds properly and actually supposedly be validated and be considered of trust is South Africa. That's it. There may be some diamond cutting firms, I don't know. There used to be one in Central African Republic, but it wasn't that amazing. Because again, one of the big issue that we have is the fact that we lack consistency. So it's going to work for as long as, and unfortunately, that's true. Somebody, whether it's a brother or sister from the diaspora, who has a certain sense of rigorousness and really looks into the quality of delivery, etc., that's going to be sort of like controlling the way the teams deliver and work. And the moment, unfortunately, we don't have that because, and I'll explain why this mentality is in place according to my perspective. The moment that person is no longer in position and you start surrendering the control of the production to the people you once were managing, well, quickly you'll start to see that the authority is not the same, or even if the person has the best intentions and really is of absolute trustability, the people that are to be managed by this person will start acting the hell up. Even when you manage and you control things and you impose a certain system, you're still gonna have to come back and explain to people, okay, this repeat the same thing over and over. Problematic caused by the fact that at the root, at the inception, these very people that you're trying to train, their matrix, they didn't have access to the amount of again, knowledge, culture, and education that would allow them to build critical analysis, allowing, because they have a critical analysis, but it's based on the program of survival, right? So if all you are is surviving, and all you have is surviving and taking what you can now, you can never think about building something for tomorrow or making sure that Well, shit, I have this business here. Let me make sure that it stays 100% so that it can last me, a lifetime and even beyond. I can pass that business down to my kids, right? That's why a lot of them, if I look back, for example, we used to have this plumber back home in Central African Republic. The no, yeah, carpenter. Sorry. The moment there were three. The moment one of them passed away, his family, there was, so basically because he was the only provider and everybody was underneath the guy, extending their hands for all the hands out and this and that and the other. um Unfortunately, when he died unexpectedly, it created a massive distress for his family because they just didn't have the skill set, and they got used to being fed and having somebody that represented a that was a giving force, and they didn't really have to worry about much. That doesn't mean that is the case for everyone, but the problem is that in every family on the continent, there's always going to be one or two leaders. Either it's the mother, either it's the father, or it's the uncle. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be that one provider. If that one provider dies, everything scatters, everything goes left, all right, or wherever you want to be going. It just goes down the drain. Why? Education. And I'm telling you, even people, and by that, it's not a question of just going to school and knowing how to count, because I know of, and I have in my own family in back home, people who are fucking idiotic to the next level. Like, all they think of is today. They don't even understand tomorrow, and they have no sense. They don't have no sense, literally none. So it's not just, unfortunately, a lot of these things, when you say that it's uncomfortable, truth is, and it's very uncomfortable because it makes us look as idiots and as incapable. But there is a lot of issues that we must acknowledge. We always want to talk about, oh yeah, Africa is not just that. Of course, Africa is not just the poverty, is not just that. Of course, it's not. But it's also that. And us refusing to address the deeper issues at hand, because we don't want to have an Africa that we only want to look at an Africa that, obviously is not responding to the westernized cliche and the very very propaganda that leads people to look at Africa as, again, third world continent, and good for nothing, a land that you can just walk into and do whatever you want, etc., etc., etc. In order for us to really have a truly deeply impactful action, we not only have to, of course, make sure that we always showcase the ourselves into the best light, but in the meantime, we got to deal with the shit that's there, and we got to deal with it wholeheartedly, at full force. So again, education is the key to develop the nation, whichever nation you're talking about. And we have a lot of capable minds, a lot of capable people. Our youth is amazingly capable. You hear about young geniuses creating things, generators that can make electricity without electricity, or electric. That young Kenyan guy. I mean, I don't even know if he's still alive. They probably have killed him, or probably took him somewhere. I don't know. Anyways, that's right. In response to what Erica was asking, so he's building an army force, part of the solution. Where's the business? Do we want Africa to engage with this way globally? Keshan said, a house without a fence will be trespass, so we have to protect our gems. Indeed, I agree. Nakaza, first of all, Africa needs to invest in education, technology, and explore not only the easy wealth of prime materials, oil, gas, stones, etc. Still less and invest more. And I agree, Unity. Yeah, but okay, well, but okay, still less and invest more. But the problem is that to invest in these resources, because it's not like these investments don't exist, right? They exist, they are taking places, and they are implemented. This is why you hear about Africa as the future. Africa is the fastest growing economy in the world. Whatever they say. They all do these big forums, etc. But the problem is that the infrastructures, at least as far as the only infrastructures in place are the ones that are there to take out of the continent. And this is, again, it's systemic. So it's no, again, it's a never-ending problem, because at the source, at the root, you're not curing the issue, because you're maintaining a system that can only but fail. Well, can only but lead someone to fail if they want to come out of the condition. Or I wouldn't say fail necessarily, but out of 1,000,000 people, well, out of 100 people that try to make it, maybe let's say, to be really generous, maybe let's say 10. But these 10 have to feed the 90 others that didn't make it. It's complicated. It's very complicated, and this is not saying that there's no solutions. There are solutions, of course, and like I was saying here, no education is what helps the African leaders to keep the population without questioning where their wealth is spent. Yeah, but again, the lack of that's, people are more educated now than they ever was in retrospect. If you look back and you look now, but at the same time, they're also less educated. It's very weird. It's a strange thing. There's definitely more access to education. There's more access to information. Sorry, but that doesn't mean that the information educates. It indoctrinates, and as a matter of fact, it may bring about some sense of awareness of your environment and the injustice of the environment you live in, but at the same time, it's not providing answers, concrete and direct answers to your problem. And so, again, if you look back at colonial times, and you look at the way things have been implemented in such ways that, for example, from the God you pray to the angels you ask help to, etc., all of them are white. And some may say, well, but you don't know God's color. Of course, but Jesus is white. Oh, there's a debate. The point is not about debating if he's white, black, red, or yellow. No, but at the end of the day, if all you hear, all you look at around you is that whatever is lighter is better, unfortunately, and I'm thankful that there is a shift in this paradigm. But the problem is that when you have people who unfortunately are not able to sort of like put things in perspective, and we're talking about 21st century. We're not talking about like 19th century, 21st century now. I'm hearing you can hear some people speaking. Yo, it's bad, man. It's really, really bad. You see, you must acknowledge that. That's why I was saying back in, even as far back as the 80s, or even beyond, much earlier than that. Well, let's say, what? No, no, no. As far as back as the late 80s, because the independence, right after the independence, we can look at people's minds. African people's minds have been maintained in shackles, in chains, and purposely so, indeed, from bad leaders, or even if there was leaders that meant well, but unfortunately, you know, along the line, when you're in power, when you are uh, the head of a state, of a country, you're not alone. And a lot of the time, people forget that. As a matter of fact, they they easily forget that when it comes to Africa, but when it comes to the rest of the world, well, the leader has a government, and the government is to be blamed for this and that and the other. I'm not saying that people don't blame their leaders in the Western world, but there's a contemptuous look upon African leaders. You know, often depicted as ogres and dedicated, etc., etc., etc. Um, which, again, plays into this paternalizing approach to things, and this white savior complex, which thinks that they know what's better for these poor little African kids than these kids may know for then these kids may know what is good for them. You know, we have got to stop thinking that one system is to work for everybody uniformly, and this is the answer for every problem. Just like in this positive thinking should not be a situation where you don't acknowledge the root problem, the root issue, because you can think positively, but if you deep inside you've not come to peace with certain things, you will never be positive. You may speak and wishful be wishful of seeing positive things happen in life, but because deeply and intrinsically you've not dealt with the much uh, um, more fucked up aspect of what is holding you back, well, all you're going to be doing is wishful thinking, and you're going to feel frustrated because things don't work out, don't unfold the way you would have hoped they would. So, taking action, understanding that we have got to be educating ourselves. And by educating ourselves, I'm not saying just knowing how to read and count, etc. It's really like from learning to repeat what you hear at school, to actually building a critical mind and start looking at what has been done. History books written by white historians, etc., or Arab historians, or whatever. I'm not saying that they're not good. Of course, if they write about their own history, and most of the time that's what it is, their history is more glorious than ours, and unfortunately, that is a problem. They're not going to go and say, "Well, we took this and that and that and that from the Africans," because and whenever somebody comes and raise their voice and say, "Hold on, you took this from our ancestors," they come and say, "Where? How? When? Do you have proofs?" And even when you bring forth the proof, or you bring forth element of proofs, they'll still find a way to dismiss them, um, and then use different sorts of angles, calling you different names and trying to corner you and label you as a thing that then therefore locks you into a predicament that does not allow you and afford you the possibility to defend or even continue what you're trying to push forward, because automatically you're falling into a box, you know um and that's the issue. Like, that's why, for example, if you can see all the all this woke nation. Not all of it is bad. There's some good things about them, but, like, as always, there's going to be extremes. Same goes for those who are educated, got freshly educated, think they know a lot, start just because they drop one or two names, they'll say Cheikh Anta Diop, they'll say, Nation Agriculture, they'll talk about they'll drop a few words that attest to the fact that, well, according to the person who is listening to them, that attest to the fact that they know what they're talking about, when actually all they have is they've read things on the surface. They didn't go deep enough to incorporate it with and make that information theirs, and and allow them to bring forth their critical mind so that they can deliver the message in an from an objective and as close to the truth that they have received in the first place, right? So you see, there's a necessity to truly be educated, and that's why the likes of Sheikh Kantajub said, before anything, we must be armed with um, impeccable knowledge. Knowledge is the most important weapon, but if you don't practice and act upon your knowledge, and you don't um, try to spread as much of that knowledge as possible, your ignorance is the very thing that's going to lead you to your demise. And again, you knowing to read and you knowing how to count, etc., doesn't make you educated. You know, you are capable of executing things that allow you to function in a society, yes. But in order for you to really be um, moving as a enlightened mind, you have got to go deep into the research and the quest of knowledge that will not only enable you the capacity to perceive things beyond your impressions, but also give you the kind of critical outlook on things that will absolutely um, bless you in so many ways, and and open opportunities. I think, because you'll be able to see through certain things better than most. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the book of Nation Agriculture, as I was just dropping that reference earlier. Check on that job, a bit of my resume. But in other words, reading through what I wrote is, the to the basically, I was checking out this thing today where people, it's almost like some historians or some people try to act like, or try to say that Egypt, even though Egypt is in Africa, but it's not really African, and it's that white Egypt, that light skinned Egypt that we see, but it's not always been like that, right? And I think that it's interesting when you're exposed to this information, and when they try telling you, when you go to some of these museums and you see these pharaohs being, black skins, and they tell you that, this is the oxidation because of this or that. They come up with so many things, so many excuses and reasons as to why the skins appear to be brown or black. They'll tell you that, for example, as well, they'll say that Herodotus, Socrates, etc., Socrates, and all these Plato, when they describe their experiences with black people, they didn't really have a sense of what color it was, and it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. To know that Africa has birthed medicine, we surgeons, and deep knowledge about how to operate on some very refined and complex kind of uh, um, physical issues one may encounter. As far back as those days, the Greeks came to Africa to get their knowledge. You know, um, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Even the concept of seeing death, and the fact that death is not an end; it's a continuation. It's There's a sense of everything is cycles, and they just they're just much more light and positivity about our ancient history, that can allow to bring more light to today's making of the history, and allow a bigger empowerment of our people, and a better empowerment of our people. Sorry. So yeah, it's a deep topic. It's a deep topic, and I love the fact that I had all this great intervention. I want to really thank everyone for chipping in today. It was a very um, beautiful conversation, pregnant with so many great inputs. And I'm going to try to bring some proper scholars on the show. This is something that I'm working on, trying to get these contacts. A lot of them are francophones, but I know that I'll be able to find some anglophone ones. Uh, because I also don't want to just bring anybody to the show, people that's going to spew. Because that's the other thing. Like some of our beloved sisters and brothers who have been newly or have they, even if they're not been newly acquainted with this knowledge, and embracing these very, very liberating and empowering information. I don't really want to come into. I don't really want to bring forth people with ideologies, even though it's interesting to hear what they have to say. But yeah, I have to look into it. I have to look into finding the right kind of panelists to bring on the show. Master Electronic. Um, the solution for Africa is to remap the whole Africa, and reprogram Africans. Do you think it's possible? Um, it's very interesting what you're saying, because this is something that Mr. John Henry Clark was saying on one of his intervention, which um, in which he said he advised people to completely review the borders, and again, remap, reprogram, in his own words, but pretty much what you're saying. And I don't know, man. I mean, if you hear, for example, Uhuru Kenyatta, uh, the ex-president of Kenya, he said during an intervention, I don't know when, where, and how, but when and where, and at which occasion, but he says that we're fighting over borders that are not even borders of our own making, and that it's a very silly thing for us Africans to fight over things and over borders that we've not created ourselves. And in substance, and I'm paraphrasing certainly here, but unity is better than anything. And that's the thing, before we even remap any borders, we've got to remap our minds. We got to remap our thinking, our perception of one another. We've got to be able to speak to one another within our own countries and our very vast and different tribes. Understanding that we've got to go beyond our differences and disagreements and ill feelings in order to build the kind of sovereignty we wish to see coming to life, and bringing about the sovereignty of the bodies, the minds, the cultures, um, a strengthening of our socio-cultural, socio-economical uh, basis. That is something that we've all got to work on, and understanding that the answer is definitely not in the religions that have been brought to us, and a reconnection with ancient practices of spirituality, um, and that doesn't um, equate to you worshiping the devil. As a matter of fact, it's interesting how some of our ancient practices and religions have been diabolized, as if we did not know God existed before the white man came to the continent. We've got to understand that we are created in the image of the Creator. We are able of creation, good and bad. And if we were to focus more on the good that's within us, and that goes for and beyond, uh, the God you pray and the religion you believe in and the faith you practice, we will be able to indeed see some changes. But unfortunately, um, if we don't see the change in terms of mentality taking place, we won't see any of the other things that I mentioned above. I mentioned earlier um, happening. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But I am hopeful. I am hopeful. That doesn't mean that I am completely pessimistic, and I don't think that there's going to be um, a potential for the continent to free itself completely. To a certain extent, it is freeing itself. To another, it's not. It's all a question of perspective. It's all a question of also allowing ourselves some time, because let's not forget, it's a continent that has been attacked for centuries, after centuries, and never given an opportunity to rest. Because again, when you are the wealthiest continent in terms of resources, you cannot expect people to let you rest. If you're the hottest chick in the compound or in the area, you're gonna have a lot of dudes chasing you and trying to get into your panties, and that's what it is. You know, but Mama Africa is resilient, powerful, and one way or the other, I think that you know, actually, thanks to modernity and YouTube and all of these technology, there is a rebirth of pride. There's a rebirth of self value, and there is a strengthening of our belief that we are more than what we've been, what our fathers have been told they were, and forefathers have been told they were. Um, you know, and eventually influencing us. Because even me, as I said, I include myself in the picture. Even if I am, a non-melanated black man, I still am of the continent and from the continent, and I come from the color black. Black is the only color that can give, all of these different shades, and it's a very, very powerful color. But beyond the color, it's not even about the color at this point, because you not having the color, you not having this doesn't disqualify you um, for being an African if you are of the continent, whether you acknowledge it or not. We love to say that humanity was birthed in Africa, but then we are quick to jump into um, taking the side of tribalism and exclusion, colorism, and all that. So yeah, we hope that people will change their minds and will see things from a different perspective. But even if it's not the whole of humanity, that does. I believe that a lot more people are being, again, awakening to these concepts, these ideas, um, being more um, embracing of those truths and, yeah, changing the paradigm one person at a time, one story at a time, and reshaping the face of our understanding of ourselves and also of our perception when it comes to the way we look at each other on the continent. That's right. Yeah, it's a deep topic, yo. It's a deep topic. It's a deep topic because and it's a bit sad, if you think about it. But there's hope. There's hope, and yeah, if this conversation has sparked some interest and some curiosity, you know, um, it's amazing. That's the point, you know. Yeah. Look at my dog snoring in the back. Anyways, family. Yeah, we're getting there. You see, as I'm talking, I'm taking more confidence to speak on this topic. I am also um, building and strengthening my knowledge day by day, and I give myself, because this is a lifetime of learning. But yeah, I think another 2 3 years, and I'll be able to, you know, speak uh, with more depth on these topics, and yeah. But until that happens, we will be having some definitely interesting guests as time goes. Have a beautiful week once again. When you turn off, or when you sign out of this show, make sure before you do that you press the like button. You can always, obviously, show some love at the super chat, super stickers, even after the show is done. You can obviously, and you should, get some merch. That's important. Go to my website, www. Yeah, exactly, Boddhi-Satva.com, and get some merch. Stream my music, of course. Stream it on all your favorite streaming platforms. And subscribe to the channel. Share the word. Share the videos. Do the thing. Have a beautiful week, family, and I shall be seeing you this Friday for Quarantine Grooves, indeed. Until then, y'all be blessed in abundance. That's about right, fam. Peace.